All right, so today we're going to dive into something that's really been catching my eye
Yeah.
in the world of AI.
Yeah.
For a while now, all the attention and the money has been going to those companies building the big AI models,
Right.
the big names like OpenAI
Yeah.
and Anthropic,
Philanthropic.
where we saw just billions of dollars flowing in.
Absolutely billions.
But recently, there's been this surge in a different kind of company in the AI space, and that's what we're going to unpack today.
I'm excited.
Companies that are building what some call AI apps, or even what used to be called wrappers.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got some really interesting source material to work with to help us make sense of this whole thing.
Awesome.
We've got a CNBC video transcript, and also an article from Geeks for Geeks about something called vibe coding,
Okay.
which we'll get to a bit later. But our mission today is to understand why these AI apps are suddenly gaining so much traction,
Right.
both with users and investors, what they
Wow.
actually do, and what this shift means for the future of AI, and maybe even how we code.
Yeah, that's a great point because it's not just about the AI itself. It's about how we interact with it, how we build it, how we use it. It's a whole ecosystem that's changing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what I think is particularly interesting is that early on, these AI wrappers,
Yeah.
they were often seen as kind of like,
Secondary almost.
yeah, like second rate, almost like,
Middlemen almost.
yeah, just middlemen,
Yeah.
not the real deal.
Right.
But that perception is changing so rapidly.
It really is. Like, it's almost happening in real time. And I think that's what's so fascinating about this particular deep dive is we're catching this wave right as it's cresting.
Yeah, and it really wasn't that long ago that if you were talking to people in the AI space, particularly investors,
Mm-hmm.
the prevailing wisdom was that the only way to really win
Right.
was to build your own foundational model.
Right.
That was it. Like that was
the path.
the path. And
Yeah,
now
actually,
we're seeing this whole other narrative emerging.
he's flipped on its head, and it's fascinating to see how quickly that's happened.
It is. So let's just start with the basics. What exactly are we talking about when we say AI apps
Right.
or wrappers for those who still use that term?
Yeah, so essentially an AI wrapper, or increasingly as we're seeing an AI app, is an application or a business that's built around one or more existing AI models.
Okay.
So think of it this way. You're taking the intelligence of something like ChatGPT
Right.
or Claude,
Uh-huh.
and you're using it as the engine to address a very specific problem or to create some kind of unique experience for users.
So it's like they're taking these incredibly powerful foundational models
Yeah.
and building something very specific on top of them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the CNBC transcript gives us some really compelling examples of companies that are doing this really well.
Yes.
You know, you've got companies like Perplexity, which is this fascinating AI-powered search tool.
Uh-huh.
Then you've got Replit, which is an AI-driven platform for coding.
Okay.
And then there's Harvey AI, which specializes in legal analysis.
Sorry.
And then you've got Abridge, which automates tasks like note-taking in healthcare.
Yeah, and I think Abridge is particularly interesting because it's solving a very real problem
Yeah.
in a field that's just drowning in paperwork and administrative burdens.
Absolutely. And I think it highlights how these AI apps can really target those pain points that people feel every single day.
Right. And then there's this AI agent from China, Manus,
Yeah.
which has just exploded in popularity.
So it's fascinating, right?
Like 2 million people on the wait list in just 7 days.
7 days. It's unbelievable.
And what makes it even more interesting is that it's built on Claude and Qwen,
Right.
which are not exactly
Unknown technologies, right?
like cutting edge, brand new.
Yeah. It's not like they've discovered some new magical model. It's using existing technology, but applying it in a way that clearly resonates with people.
It's like what they built on top of it is what's...
Is the special sauce.
Yeah.
And I think Manus really highlights this key point that users don't always care about what's under the hood. They care about whether the application solves their problem effectively.
Does it work?
Does it work? Does it make my life easier? Does it give me something I didn't have before?
And is it easy to use?
Exactly. And that's where these AI apps really excel.
Yeah, and you know what else the CNBC piece touches on? Is how investor sentiment is shifting.
Oh, yeah.
We're seeing more and more money flowing into these AI applications
Because they see the potential.
because they can see the potential
Yeah.
to address specific needs
And the potential for return.
and build a loyal customer base.
Recurring revenue.
Yeah.
That's the magic word for investors.
It is, and it's a big change from just focusing on those core models.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it makes sense when you think about it. You know, if you can solve a specific problem for a specific group of people
Right.
and they're willing to pay for that solution month after month,
That's the dream.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
That's a sustainable business.
That's a sustainable business.
Yeah.
You know, the CNBC transcript had this great quote from Jim Barksdale.
Oh, yeah, I love that quote.
There are two ways to make money, bundling and unbundling.
It's so simple, but so true.
And I think it perfectly describes what these AI apps are doing.
I agree. They're taking that raw power of the AI models and they're bundling it with other things.
Right.
Things like a better user interface,
Mhm.
customized features for specific tasks,
Right.
and increasingly their own unique data sets.
Yeah, and that's a big one.
Huge.
Because it's not just about the model anymore, it's about the data you train it on.
Absolutely. The data is the fuel.
It's the fuel.
Yeah.
And they're also fine-tuning these models
Oh, yeah.
for very specific use cases.
Very niche, very targeted.
And developing their own proprietary capabilities.
Secret sauce.
Yeah, that set them apart from the general purpose models.
Right, because if you're just relying on the general model,
Right.
you're not really offering anything unique.
You're just one of many.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
got to find a way to stand out.
And I think that's why we're seeing this shift away from the term wrapper.
Yeah, Wrapper just doesn't do it justice anymore, does it?
It just sounds so...
Passively.
Yeah, and it doesn't really convey the thought and effort that goes into understanding a problem and building a solution.
It's not just putting a pretty face on someone else's technology.
Right. It's about crafting something new,
It's about solving a problem,
solving a problem.
creating value.
Yeah.
That's what AI apps really represents.
Okay, so the CNBC piece goes into some detail about one AI app in particular that's doing really well,
Okay.
Abridge. And I know you've looked into them as well.
I have. They're a really fascinating case study.
So what is it about Abridge that makes them stand out?
Well, their mission is really compelling. They're all about unburdening clinicians from all that clerical work.
Right.
You know, turning patient conversations into notes, into billing codes.
Yeah, that's a huge pain point in healthcare.
Huge. And they've been around for a while, actually. They were founded back in 2018.
Wow. So before
Before the big LLM boom.
LLMs were really a thing?
They were already using earlier transformer models.
Okay.
So when generative AI hit the scene, it was like
The party came to them.
the party came to them. They were ready.
They're in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. And from the beginning, they've been laser focused on that application layer, solving those very specific problems for a very specific group of users.
Healthcare professionals.
Healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
They're deeply integrated into existing workflows.
And they're using proprietary healthcare data.
That's a big one, especially in healthcare where privacy and security are paramount.
Huge. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Abridge gets that. They're aiming to be a full-stack solution,
Mm-hmm.
combining the technology, the integration, the customer support, and they're constantly learning from the edits doctors make.
Right. Because it's not just about getting it right the first time. It's about constantly iterating and improving based on real-world feedback.
And I think that's where they really differentiate themselves.
Yeah, they're building that trust by being a true partner to healthcare providers.
So it makes you wonder, why wouldn't the companies building the foundational models?
Mm-hmm. Like OpenAI or Anthropic, just go directly into all these different application areas.
They have the core technology.
You might have the tech.
But it's incredibly difficult to be an expert in everything.
Yeah.
The CEO of Abridge actually talked about this. He said it's about going millions of miles deep in a specific area.
Millions of miles deep.
Millions. And the foundational model companies, they tend to have more of a T-shaped approach.
Okay, what does that mean?
So imagine the letter T.
Okay.
The wide top represents a broad understanding across many areas,
Mm-hmm.
while the deep vertical part represents expertise in one specific area.
I see.
So for those foundational companies, the wide top is their broad AI capabilities.
Applicable to lots of things.
Exactly. And the deep vertical is the model technology itself.
Okay.
They provide the base, and others build on top of it.
So they're not necessarily going to be the ones building the specialized apps.
Not necessarily. It's not their focus. They're enabling others to do that.
Okay, so back to Abridge. The transcript mentions something they called model orchestration. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
What is that exactly?
So essentially, they're managing a bunch of different AI models behind the scenes to achieve their specific goals.
So they're not just using one model.
Not at all.
Yeah.
They have this thing called a contextual reasoning engine, and it can actually hit multiple models.
Wow.
Sometimes 15 to 20 different model calls
For one note.
just to generate a single patient note.
That's incredible.
It's pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
And they're using a mix of those big general purpose models trained on tons of web data and smaller, more specialized open source models that they've fine-tuned for specific healthcare tasks.
It's like a whole symphony of AI.
It really is. And it allows them to get that high level of accuracy and that nuanced understanding of the conversation.
And do it cost effectively.
Right, because running all those models can get expensive.
Absolutely. And they're even experimenting with open source models like DeepSeek.
Right, they're constantly looking for ways to be more efficient and effective.
So how does a bridge actually make money?
Their revenue model is tied directly to the value they create for healthcare systems.
Okay.
So you've got this huge problem of doctor burnout.
Yeah. 2 out of 5 doctors are considering leaving the profession in the next few years.
It's a crisis, and healthcare systems are willing to pay for solutions.
That can help.
That can help. So a bridge is actually live across over 110 health systems.
Wow, that's impressive.
And it shows that there's a real demand for what they're offering.
So the term AI wrapper
Doesn't really cut it.
doesn't feel very accurate anymore.
No, it's too simplistic.
It's too simplistic.
They're doing so much more than just wrapping a model.
Right. They've got their own data, their own fine-tuning, their own way of orchestrating these models.
They're almost like a foundational model company themselves in a way,
In a way.
with that T-shaped approach we talked about.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about something completely different but also super interesting.
Okay.
The CNBC piece mentioned vibe coding.
Vibe coding.
Yeah,
The Geeks for Geeks article you shared really dives into that.
it does. So what is vibe coding?
It's basically a new way of thinking about software development
Okay.
that puts the emphasis on creativity and fun.
Fun.
Yeah, it's about making coding enjoyable.
Huh. Interesting.
It seems to be especially popular with younger coders and those who are more creatively inclined.
So it's not just about solving problems or building efficient algorithms.
Not necessarily. It's about expressing yourself and having fun while doing it.
And the article says this concept was introduced by Andrej Karpathy.
Oh, wow. Him.
Yeah, back in February 2025.
Makes sense.
And he talked about giving in to the vibes,
I love that.
focusing on the creative process.
Like letting the code flow through you.
And AI plays a big role here.
It does, because it can help even amateur programmers
Okay.
create amazing things.
So what are the key elements of this vibe coding?
Well, it's all about interactive learning,
Okay.
emotional engagement, collaborative environments, integrating music and aesthetics.
Music.
Yeah, like coding to a soundtrack, and even gamification.
So it's like making coding a game.
Kind of like making it more engaging and fun.
Huh. I never thought of it that way.
And AI really enables this because you can describe what you want to build in simple words,
Uh-huh.
and the AI generates the code for you.
No way.
Yeah. Then you test it, give the AI feedback.
Using natural language.
Exactly. And it refines the code.
So you're not really writing the code yourself?
Not in the traditional sense. You're more like guiding the AI.
Guiding the AI?
It's a partnership.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is. It's a very different way of thinking about coding.
So how does it actually compare to traditional coding?
Well, the Geeks for Geeks article has this great comparison table,
Okay.
and it shows that vibe coding is all about creativity and fun,
Mm-hmm.
while traditional coding is more about problem solving and efficiency.
Right.
Vibe coding is flexible and has a lower learning curve.
Makes sense.
It's perfect for creative projects,
Whereas traditional coding is still the go-to for complex systems.
enterprise level stuff,
Right.
where you need that precision and reliability.
And there are specific tools and technologies that support vibe coding,
Oh, yeah, ton.
like processing and P5.js for visuals,
Mhm.
Sonic Pi for music,
That one's really cool.
and then AI-powered tools like Cursor Composer, GitHub, Copilot, Replit Agent.
Yeah, those are all designed to make coding more intuitive and creative.
So what are some of the benefits of this approach?
Well, the biggest one is accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need years of training to create something cool.
Wow.
And development is much faster.
That's a huge advantage.
Huge. And it can lead to more innovation because more people can participate.
So it's like democratizing coding in a way.
Exactly, putting the power to create in everyone's hands.
But there must be some challenges too.
Of course, there are
Mhm.
always challenges.
The article mentioned concerns about code quality and security.
Right, because if you're not an expert,
You might not know what you're doing.
exactly.
Right.
And that can lead to bugs or vulnerabilities.
And what about maintaining and updating the code?
That's a big question mark. Because if you don't understand the underlying code,
Right.
it can be really hard to make changes.
It's like a black box
In a way.
Right.
So there's still a need for human expertise
to guide and refine the AI.
to make sure things are done right.
And Abridge actually had some interesting insights on vibe coding.
Oh, yeah. What do they say?
They said they use it internally for rapid prototyping.
Okay,
and to communicate design ideas.
that makes sense.
But they don't see it replacing traditional coding for building enterprise-grade solutions,
Especially in healthcare.
right, where reliability is critical.
Yeah, you can't be messing around with patient data.
And they made this great point about needing two hands to clap with AI tools,
I love that analogy.
meaning you still need human expertise to guide the AI.
Because the AI's initial instincts might not always be correct.
It's this collaboration.
It's a team effort.
Okay, so let's talk about the competitive landscape for these AI apps.
All right, let's get into the battleground.
They're going up against some pretty big players,
Oh, yeah, some of the biggest.
like Microsoft with OpenAI,
Right.
Google with their own AI,
Mm-hmm. Amazon with their infrastructure, their cloud is everywhere.
and Meta with all their GPUs.
It's a tough crowd.
It's a tough crowd.
Like David versus Goliath.
Yeah, so how can these startups even compete?
Well, Satya Nadella actually said something interesting.
What's that?
He said that the models themselves are becoming commoditized,
Commoditize.
meaning they're becoming more widely available.
I see.
So the real differentiation is now at the application layer.
So it's not about who has the best model anymore.
Not necessarily. It's about who can use it most effectively.
And that's where these AI native apps, which are built from the ground up to leverage AI,
Right.
might have an edge,
They're designed for this new world.
while the big tech company,
They're playing catch-up in a way.
and they have this thing called the innovator's dilemma.
Right. They don't want to disrupt their existing businesses.
It's like Google being hesitant to fully embrace AI because it could undermine their search business.
Exactly. And they can be slow to maneuver.
Like, remember Google's Notebook LM?
Yeah, whatever happened to that?
Seemed promising, but then,
Less momentum.
yeah, whereas startups,
They can move fast.
they can experiment
Like Perplexity
with their election hub and their finance dashboard.
and their browser.
It's impressive.
They're not afraid to try new things.
But can they sustain that momentum?
That's the million-dollar question.
What's stopping the big guys from just copying them?
Or acquiring them.
Exactly.
I mean, the mega caps have so many advantages.
Mountains of cash.
Enterprise relationships,
Data.
distribution channels.
It's a lot to overcome.
It is, but the startups are trying to build moats.
Moats.
Yeah, like competitive defenses.
Okay, how are they doing that?
Some of them are developing their own specialized models.
Like Perplexity and Afterbridge?
Right. They're not relying on someone else's tech.
Okay.
They're leveraging proprietary data and fine-tuning those models for very specific use cases.
So they're becoming the experts.
Exactly. And the way we distribute software is changing.
How so?
AI could level the playing field.
Meaning?
The traditional channels might not be as important anymore.
Interesting. So it's not all doom and gloom for the startups.
Not at all. They have a fighting chance.
So it seems like the AI world is shifting
It's evolving rapidly
away from just building big models,
towards building useful applications,
solving real problems.
making a difference.
So wrapping up our deep dive today,
Yeah,
it's clear that the AI landscape is transforming.
absolutely.
We're moving towards these specialized applications built on top of the foundational models.
These AI apps are the future.
And they're solving real-world problems.
They're attracting serious investment.
And even changing how we code with things like vibe coding.
It's an exciting time to be in this space.
It is. There are challenges, of course.
Always.
But the agility and focus of these AI apps.
They offer a compelling path forward.
So as we leave you today, here's a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
With the rise of these AI apps and vibe coding,
Hmm.
what new possibilities are emerging?
Hmm.
How might this change things, not just in software and healthcare,
Right.
but in other industries we haven't even thought of yet?
It's a whole new world of potential.
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was fun.
It was. Until next time.